Do you think it will have any negative effects like on society as a whole or on like the economy based on taking jobs? It's doing things better than certain people like lawyers and stuff like that. It's writing documents now. Do you have any of those kind of concerns overall for just AI in general?
You know, one of the things that I found interesting, my daughter is a senior in high school and we did all these college visits this past year. And one thing they were telling us, and colleges are really cracking down on kids who are using AI to write their applications and write their college essays. And yes, jobs can be replaced. I mean, especially writing jobs.
Welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Show with Ryan Greenberg and Nick Kalfas. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Millionaire Show. We are here with Brad Dwin. What's up, Brad?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's
Good to be here.
going on?
Good. What's up, Nick? How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
I'm good. So, Brad, you hit me up a couple weeks ago about coming on the podcast, and you have some interesting stuff to talk about. But before that, let's talk about your background, your intro. Where'd you start? Did you go to college for real estate, or you just get into that? Like, what's your background?
So actually, my background is mostly marketing and public relations, but it's been for a lot of real estate related firms, which it's amazing that I didn't get into this a long time ago. It never occurred to me. You know, I was raising a family and just doing my job, and it never occurred to me that investing in real estate when I was like 25, 35 was a lot smarter than when I was, almost 50 getting into it. But I worked several years for the Rouse Company, which was a big publicly traded company here in Maryland that owned, Columbia Mall and did, all of Columbia development. And I was there until the company was sold, actually. And then I had a couple other stints with some other real estate firms. And then I was a consultant for the mortgage industry during the housing crisis. And that's when I really started thinking about getting into real estate, because we were basically dealing with homeowners who were behind on mortgages. We were doing events all over the country. I was doing interviews on television and radio and newspaper talking about how the mortgage industry and the nonprofits and the government was helping everybody get out of these mortgages. It was during all the subprime lending, 2007 to like 2016. And then after 2016, I had a couple other smaller jobs. And then that's when I decided that now is the time for me to invest in real estate. And of course, I did the unwise thing and I waited until I was going through the divorce and didn't have the kind of money I had before. Mm-hmm. So I kind of built it from the ground up. And I focused on wholesaling to begin with. And even now, about 6 years later, my focus is still mainly wholesaling. I wish I had some rental properties. Nick's the rental guy. I wish I had done it the way he did it. Now it's a little tougher to get rentals with rates and everything the way they are. But wholesaling is kind of my thing. And because I'm a decent marketer, I've learned how to pull in most of my leads online or inbound as opposed to cold calling and texting. I've done a little bit of that, but I don't do as much outbound marketing as some of these other guys. The drawback is it's much tougher to scale my business that way. But I mean, much like my parents have been in their business, I'm still very hands-on. So I still kind of like having that interaction with clients, whether they be sellers or buyers. And some people would rather just build the business, build all their systems, and not even deal with it and just collect a check. Yes, that's nice. It's just not my style. So it's tougher to scale that way for sure.
So I want to touch on something that you mentioned. You mentioned that you wish you would have had started investing at a younger age. Why do you think, and I feel like a lot of people out there listening, and a lot of people out there in the real estate space, maybe they are in that same position where they don't get an early start. They don't even think about it until, later in life. Why do you think that is? Why do you think a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old doesn't think about that and they start to think about it later on in life?
I think, well, if they're like me, it's because you think you need a lot of money to get in. And I think that's what always held me back. It was in my mind that I needed money. Now we all know that there's plenty of ways to do it without putting a ton of capital of your own into it. I didn't know that back in 1995, 1996. And now you kind of know those things. And I think not having the funding available is probably the biggest thing, especially if you're young.
I honestly think the generation before us, it's a simple access to information. We can easily go on podcasts on your iPhone. You can go on YouTube. There's so much access to this content where before you'd have to find a book in the library or find a book somewhere, even before, pre-internet days, where you couldn't just go on Amazon to find a book about real estate. You had to physically go to a store to search that out. So if you already thought it was a little bit out of reach to begin with, then not a lot of people would naturally, lean towards that. And then you start seeing 60-second clips on Instagram of people telling you that they bought a bunch of rental properties and now they're flying around in private jets. It's much, more appealing, and it makes people wonder and get into it. I think that's what it is. I think a lot of it's just like it's easy to learn about
the information.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, people are talking about it now. It's a big, it's a thing. It's a key word. Everybody's trying to get passive income. Everybody's trying to invest in real estate, and I think that's just because a couple people, bigger pockets, and some influencers have made it, that popular.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, and the information was out there when I started, and maybe that's why I got started, maybe not. However, I was in like a party stage from like 18 to like 25 to where I just didn't want to do anything else besides that. And that's where like my time and energy was. But I knew as soon as I stopped doing that, I'd find something. And that's when I found real estate investing at that point. So I guess it varies, person to person. And, like I said, the information was there. I put it on the back burner, which I could have started earlier, and I should have. But so anyone listening who's young and wants to get started, it's definitely a great time to get started at a young age, because that compound interest over time certainly adds up.
Time is definitely your friend. So Brad, do you own any rentals at all, or you just?
I actually don't own any rentals right now. I've done a couple flips, but the bulk of my business has been wholesaling. And recently I've gotten into some like gap lending type stuff. I'll do loans of like 30,000 or less for short term.
Okay.
Stuff like that. The best way to do that is with a credit line, because you're not using any money out of your pocket. And I have it structured so that I can always pay the credit line back before it's due. I get the money back from the other person before it's due. So that's the latest thing.
Arbitrage on
Basically,
money.
Yeah. And I'm finding a lot more of those deals are out there. So it's another avenue for people if you've got some money, and especially if you have money sitting in like an IRA, if you want to use a self-directed IRA, that's something else I'm looking into now for some bigger deals, because I'm over 50. So I've had money that's been put away, which I can't touch till I'm 59 and a half, but I may as well have it working for me in real estate or in lending, as opposed to sitting, there for 3% a year or whatever it's doing, just basically nothing these days.
Right.
And
not keeping up with inflation, basically.
How long have you been wholesaling?
Since about 2017. So
2017.
6 years? I'm terrible at math.
And how did you get into it?
I was thinking about getting into investing because I was kind of at the end of my span of that consulting gig. As the housing market started righting itself in like 2016, I was kind of getting forced out of that consulting role because there wasn't a crisis. They hired me for a crisis, which honestly I thought would last like 2 years, but I got lucky and it lasted like 10. So I kind of rode that wave, and I didn't really have a backup plan. So that was when I said to myself, I'm more of a solo type worker. I don't like being in big companies. The Rouse company was the exception, but I'm more of an entrepreneurial type, like my parents. They run their own businesses for years. They still run them, into their 80s. And that's kind of where I wanted to be. So I thought real estate was kind of the best option. And then when I was looking at all the different things, again, the amount of money you need to start up kind of scares you. So I found out about wholesaling. I said, well, in theory, you don't need any money to start up if you do it right. Now that's not entirely true, but I did have a little bit of money to spend on marketing, and I started building the website. That was my first thing. Is I got my website, We Buy MD Homes, which is nice because it's a search term in itself, and I didn't realize the value of that back then, but it's pretty valuable now because I rank pretty high on a lot of those searches. And I just started building my business that way, getting leads that way. I tried a little bit of direct mail in the beginning. And then I just kind of, just kept at it. I mean, it's a consistency thing. And I've had times where I'm not consistent and it shows. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you have those lean times, it's because you're not consistent and you're not following up and you're not doing all that. But that's kind of how I built it, mostly inbound.
Do you remember your first wholesale deal?
I do. And ironically, I'm in another deal with that same person.
Well, what was the time frame from when you started wholesaling to when you got your first wholesale deal?
So you want to talk about the first one I got under a contract or the first one I actually closed?
First one to close.
Okay, because the first one I actually got was a nightmare, and it took me about 3 months, and I ended up never closing it. Because you don't know when you're new, you don't know how to estimate repairs correctly. And, basically one guy said, I'll tell you what you need to do with it is burn it down because that's all it's good for.
Mhm.
But so that was about 3 months in. But the first real deal I closed, it took me about 7, 8 months to get one to close because then you got to learn how to build your buyers list. And that's the biggest piece of advice for any wholesaler out there is yes, you want to find deals, but do not find deals until you have a list of buyers. You got to do that first because a deal is only as good as being able to sell it to a buyer. If you're a wholesaler, if you have a deal you can't do anything with it, it's useless. So you need to have those buyers. So it took me probably about 6, 7 months to get that first one closed.
Do you know about like how much money you spent during that time frame?
Probably 10 to 15,000.
So after your first deal fell out, you weren't like discouraged to continue?
A little bit, but I also knew that there was other stuff in the pipeline. So you just keep at it. I mean, obviously, I failed. A lot of deals have failed. I mean, I've even had deals this year that have fallen through. It happens. It's the nature of the business.
Well, I feel like the hardest point is when you're just starting out, like for a new wholesaler,
Yeah.
for example, today, and they're going through months and months and they're not getting a deal, and maybe they're putting out marketing money and they're not seeing anything. So like, what would you say to those people out there? Just, keep pushing forward.
You got to keep pushing, but you got to. I think what you really should do is find the one marketing channel that you want to spend your money and your time on, and stick to it until it starts working.
And don't bounce back and forth.
Don't
right?
go to. That was another mistake I made in the beginning. I was trying different marketing channels, and you got to stick to one. That's the only way to get good. You got to be focused, and I think you also got to be focused in your market. For me, like you guys, it was Baltimore, but it's because I know Baltimore. I was born and raised here, so that was a logical choice. I see people trying to market now. I market all over Maryland because I can do it. And I have partners that are all over the state, so it's a little bit easier. But in the beginning, you got to be focused on everything you do, whether it's marketing, whether it's choosing the markets. Even like you can get it down to zip codes if you're just doing driving for dollars or some technique like that. I mean, you want to stay focused because that's really the only way the deals are going to start coming. And then once you build on that, you can expand out, with over time. And as more money starts rolling in, you can spend a little more on marketing depending on which channel you're best at. And, some people are better at cold calling and texting. Some people are better at direct mail. Some people are better at bandit signs, which is one thing I've never done. And some people are better at inbound marketing, which is kind of what I do.
So now let's fast forward. You are, a couple years in and you just wrote a book.
I did. So the big rage right now is ChatGPT and AI, and people are using it in businesses. And of course, I'm like everybody else. I jumped on the bandwagon. But there's an investor I know who's out of Mississippi who was very successful in marketing and in real estate investing. And he's the one who started posting about AI on my feeds and ChatGPT, and I got interested in it. So I went on the ChatGPT site one day. I signed up. It's free to use the free version. There is a paid version that's a little more advanced, and I started playing around with it. And it's amazing because the technology allows you to put in like some kind of prompt, like tell me you'll put it in like tell me the 5 zip codes in Baltimore that had the most home sales in 2023, and it instantly pulls it up the zip codes and the number of sales. Like it pulls it all from the web and from wherever else it gets it. So I said to myself, why not take this and write a book using it for real estate? So I wrote a book called ChatGPT for Real Estate Investors, and it's very simple. I had it create about 1,000 different prompts, but I broke it into categories. I had it create me a chapter of prompts for finding motivated sellers, a chapter for finding buyers for wholesale deals, a chapter for finding doing market research, et cetera. There was about 8 or 9 chapters. I don't remember how many total. And then I added a couple bonuses. I had it list out 100, top selling real estate books so that people can just, pull them up and get them or whatever. And then I had there was another bonus chapter in there too on resources that I just listed out all the resources. And I went in and, the thing with ChatGPT is you can't just have it do it and then just slap it up on Amazon or wherever and sell it. You got to go in and edit it. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure you're not plagiarizing anyone. I'm a writer by trade, so it was a little bit easier for me to go in and write an introduction about myself and kind of, organize it. And put a little character in it because, AI doesn't really have much of a personality unless you give it one. So I went in and edited it, and then I spent a few bucks on Fiverr to have it formatted correctly for Amazon as a Kindle ebook. I created a cover myself because I have that skill, and I threw it up on Amazon, and it started selling. And when it was only selling a few units here and there, I hired a publicist to get me up to higher rankings. So I spent a little bit of money on that, and her team was able to get me to number one in 5 different categories. And what that does is it gives me a little bit of clout now. I can say I'm a best-selling author, and it boosts the sales a little bit. But getting back to the whole Chat GPT thing, I use it every day, and I think anyone who's in this business and wants to scale and wants to really get more efficient and streamline things, there's ways to do it. You can't, and I learned the hard way that you can't just throw in like random prompts, because it's the information you get back from AI and from Chat GPT, and there's also there's Google has it too. It's called Bard. Which is their version of ChatGPT, which anyone who has a Google account, it's free. So you just go in there and do it. The stuff you get back from ChatGPT or from any AI interface is only as good as what you put into it. So I noticed that a lot of the stuff I was putting in was kind of garbage. It just wasn't good content. So Brent, again, who's the guy from Mississippi, he has a newsletter out there, and I was reading through his newsletter one day, and he created what's called super prompts, and you basically give it a context and give it like a list of steps to get to what you need, and it's pretty amazing. Like it's unbelievable what AI spits back to you after you enter that stuff. It's incredible, and you can use it for. I mean, it's not just for real estate; it's for any business really, and even in your personal life, there's probably ways to do it too.
So what are some of the downfalls of AI and trying to implement it into your business, besides the lack of personality or whatever, like actual functional pieces of it? What is the downfalls?
There's a couple downfalls, especially like for example, if you're using the basic version of ChatGPT, it only pulls data up to 2021. So you have to pay a little extra to get the up to date data. So you're dealing with older data sometimes. I think that, again, like I was talking about, if you just put in random stuff, you're not going to, it's, garbage in, garbage out. So you really have to learn how to craft it for your business. Now, one nice thing is that you can craft to create like business plans and marketing plans. And it's kind of nice to have that out there. But I think the other issue is that there's so many AI apps now that have been spun out of that. I mean, there's thousands of them, and some are better than others. And people worry about how AI is taking over jobs and stuff like that. So you have to be wary of that. But I also think that if you're not learning how to use it, that's another kind of slippery slope. I think the people that are learning how to use it are advancing a lot faster in their businesses than some of these other, and big companies are spending billions on doing it. And they're, Nike and Under Armour and all these companies are using it in everything now. You pretty much can't go anywhere now where something hasn't been AI generated.
What
Go ahead.
which app exactly are you using?
I mainly use ChatGPT, but there's a lot of different apps for like imaging. There's a good app for writing called Jasper, which
I've heard of that
a
one.
lot of people are using to write books and blogs and stuff like that. There's apps for SEO. There's a really cool thing that's a plugin for ChatGPT that I use. It's called AIPRM. And what it is a bunch of developers have created these little, they're like mini apps within that you can access. You just search for something, and like if I want to, learn how to do SEO better for my website, I'll punch that in, and like there'll be like 9 of these little mini apps that are created by random people that you can use within the interface, and it's kind of cool. It's a little more specialized. It's just, so much stuff has been spun out. I mean, there's an Instagram account two Instagram accounts I follow that have like almost 1 million followers now, and they're basically just ChatGPT tips all day long. That's all they do.
Do you think it will have any negative effects like on society as a whole, or on like the economy based on, it taking jobs, it's doing things better than certain people, like, even lawyers and stuff like that. It's writing documents now. Not that lawyers are hurting for money, but I'm sure there's other, copywriters and stuff like that that could be getting hurt like this. And obviously, I think part of the whole like Hollywood strike was them
Yep.
striking because this stuff can easily replace even just the voice. I mean,
Yep.
it can take a couple of our episodes of podcasts and recreate podcasts without us even saying it. It just sounds exactly like you. Do you have any of those kind of concerns overall for just AI in general?
Well, you've seen Terminator, right?
Yes.
No, but seriously, one of the things that I found interesting, my daughter is a senior in high school, and we did all these college visits this past year. And one thing they were telling us in the informational meeting is that the colleges are really cracking down on kids who are using AI to write their applications and write their college essays. And there's software that detects it, and that's a little, again, like when I wrote this book, I went in and made sure that nothing was plagiarized. There's an app that can check for plagiarism too, but that's a big concern. You mentioned lawyers, but it is interesting. There's a big debate in the legal community right now about using AI because documents vary from state to state. And when you're creating documents with AI, they have to be, compatible with whatever state they're in, and they have to, cover everything, and they still have to be reviewed. So there's always that danger. And yes, jobs can be replaced. I mean, especially writing jobs. My book is one of many out there that has been written with the help of AI, and now Amazon is even asking if the book was written with AI. I don't know what that means because it hasn't really affected me, but they are. I'm sure they're collecting data on that.
Right. Yeah, I just think about all of the people that have creative jobs that could be potentially eliminated, and like the lawyer thing. I mean, not that a chat bot can replace a real lawyer, but like just a quick example is the other day I took a private loan from somebody for a rental property, and I literally don't worry about it. And that's all I did. I typed in chat GPT, I built a little agreement. I just said Maryland's based, agreement for private lending. And I looked at another one that the title companies charged me probably $200 to write.
That's cheap.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same, literally almost the same exact thing. It doesn't need much. And that's just one way of, saving money. But in the long run, if enough people do that, it could ruin certain industries. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's kind of scary how fast it's grown.
Right. It went from 0 to 100 really quick.
Yeah. I mean, 0 to 1,000,000 really quick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts.
I mean, just like 2 years ago, no one had any idea this was like nobody. I feel like me, like normal, technological people, or whatever, even knew what this stuff was. And then one day we were just like, boom, there's an app that will write a book for you in 25 minutes. Like that's literally what happened. It seemed like, it didn't really take much time at all for it to just appear and be like a thing that everybody can use.
Yeah, but I mean, like with the book thing, though, I mean, it's only as good as the concept and the personality that you put into it. Again, I mean, that is a big, like I was saying earlier, it's a big drawback especially of ChatGPT, is it's very robotic unless you make it unrobotic.
Like the prompts you're saying have to be very creative.
Yeah,
in the sense of like what you want.
And that was like the way I structured my book. I structured it very basic, and I even say in the book that these prompts are just like they're a baseline. They're just a foundation. You need to expand on them. You're not going to, each one in its own is not going to get you to where you need to be. You need to build on them. And that's the beauty of it is that if you learn how to build on each of these prompts, and the cool thing about ChatGPT is like I have a whole window off to the side where all the ones I've done are still in there. And if I go back to them, it'll build on what I put in there before.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. And that it's only as good as what you put in there. And if you're just putting in 1 or 2 sentences, you're not going to get much back out of it.
So what's like an example of something that has been game changing for you specifically by using this software in your actual business?
I think, one thing I said earlier about, finding out the zip codes that have the most home sales. I mean, that helps me. And yes, you can go on Google and find that, but this does it a lot faster because it puts it all in one quick document. I've used it to put together some project planning, marketing plans, that kind of stuff that kind of keeps me on point and keeps me focused. Again, the writing part of it, writing, I do a lot of social media. I have it write a lot of my posts. I give it kind of the context and what I'm all about and who I'm trying to reach, and it spits it out for me. And then I go in and edit them, and that saves me a lot of time because if you do a lot of social media, you know that it's really time consuming.
Yeah.
And that's and I do a lot of business on social media. I mean, Facebook is a good lead generator for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm trying to build Instagram a little bit more than I have in the past, and I'm starting to see some push through from that. I'm starting to reach a lot more people on Instagram just because I'm posting a lot more frequently, but I can only do that because I'm using AI to help me write the posts and write the content a lot faster, and give me the ideas for the content as well. So I think that's important as well. The deals are going to come in. I don't know how much more I can do it for wholesaling. I'm trying to find ways to be better at lead generation and stuff like that. And I haven't found the secret sauce yet for that, but it's out there. You just got to keep playing with it for sure. And I spend 2 to 3 hours a day just playing around with ChatGPT and figuring out what I can do with it.
I do think it's a good like education piece, something that you can talk back and forth with. And the only issue that I have is if some of the information is wrong and then you're reading wrong information. You're like,
Yep.
you thought you were learning all this stuff and it just happens that it's all wrong because the internet is not all right. That's my concern with
Yep.
it overall. It's like how many BS websites are out there that are posting things that are completely idiotic or not true, or even just opinions, right? Because it could be pulling from blogs that are completely opinionated. They're not facts. Like, how do we, who's auditing the information?
If the internet says it's true, it's true. Just Google it.
Just Google it.
Yeah, well, I think that's ChatGPT is no different from the internet in that respect because that's always been like that.
Right, but like you said, with it putting it into one document, it really feels real.
Exactly.
It feels more real than when you pull up a website that has ads for dick pills or whatever else on it, and you're like, okay, this is not a real thing. But with that, it really does. It puts it into a PDF style format where you're like, oh, has to be real. It looks like a book to me. So that's what's concerning, is that people might take that to heart, or as a true fact, and it might be not so true.
That is a really good point. I mean, it's not necessarily just an easy button
Right.
that's going to solve all your problems. I don't want to say I'm different than other people, but I approach it by having it give me like the basics that I need, and then I build on that. And I go in and edit everything, and I fact check, and because I'm from a family of lawyers, so that's just me. I mean, I would never do anything that would jeopardize my business, and I would strongly recommend to anyone using it, and especially using it for anything that has legal repercussions. Always sit down with an attorney, get it all checked out. Don't do anything without doing that.
There's got to be, I think, in the future too, and maybe they, meaning the developers, whatever, have to figure out a way to like audit the information, or only have it pulled from certain places that are more based on facts. But of course, like that's next to impossible almost on the internet. But I do think that with the simple stuff, like for me, I've used it to write letters to tenants that are late on water bills or late on rent. Write me a letter for this person. This is the rent amount. Blah blah blah. They write me a letter. Done. Send it out. Put it on my letterhead, and it's done. Simple stuff like that. I just worry about people using it for more like, you use it for a science project at school, and it's just all bullshit, like the whole thing. And then you turn it in, because it's just you do have the generation that's coming up. The high school kids now. They're going to be using it. They're going to be recklessly using it, I'm sure, and not fact checking and stuff. So I think there is going to be some interesting, rules and regulations, and maybe some other software to audit the current software. Like you're saying, it has to come out before teachers can even know that anything's real.
Yeah, that's actually the school thing we touched on earlier. That is a big issue, and I can tell you, my daughter.
I'd be cheating my ass off.
And it's funny that you say that, because my daughter's a straight A student, and I never really worry about it. But she did say that a lot of the kids, especially in language classes, are using, and this is even before AI, they're using Google Translate to do everything. I didn't have that luxury in 1980 or whatever the heck it was. I mean, I'm pretty old, but a lot of those kids are doing that. And again, the schools are really going through essays and being very careful. And there is software out there that can audit and detect plagiarism.
But it's also new.
But yeah, exactly.
It's also new.
Definitely a dilemma for the schools, for sure.
100%. I used to be a teacher. My wife's still a teacher, and I told her, I was like, she's in 3rd grade, so it's probably not happening, just yet. But those middle high school teachers, like, they're gonna have no idea what hit them when all these essays start coming in, especially if it's new students that you don't really know. You don't know how good they are. So if they set the precedent in the first day that they're like this awesome writer, and they just have ChatGPT doing it, they can literally have it done on their phone, like in the bathroom, It's so easy to do this now for kids and they're going to be better than us and your generation
no
at
doubt.
this like in no time. I mean that's their technology. That's what they do. They do technology. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see what happens. But I do think there's going to be some negative consequences as well as all the positive ones.
Yeah,
with,
no doubt.
with the AI just in general. We've used it for some like marketing and I have this one. I think it's called AdCreative.ai, where you can like feed it a picture and a little, like we're doing spring deck cleanings or whatever, special, and it'll put it into this nice pretty picture, and then you can press like what you want it formatted for, like Facebook or Instagram, and then it'll format the size of the picture, and you can just post it on online. So that stuff I think is awesome, but
yeah, definitely.
some of this other stuff is a little concerning to me.
Yeah, even some of the tools I use have AI plugins now. Like I use Canva a lot for designing because it's really easy.
I
And
just
the stuff
had
looks really high quality.
funny sidebar about Canva. And you got to watch this too. I don't know how Cody in my office caught it, but we just had a tenant apply for one of our properties, actually one on Denison, right over by one of your properties, and their pay stub was from University of Maryland, like the hospital, completely fake, made on Canva.
Oh my God.
100% fake, made on Canva.
That's why I like to match up their bank statements
Yep,
with
100%.
their pay stubs.
The bank statements have to match the pay stubs. Yep. And I was like, I didn't even look at the bank statements until I saw, because I saw that and I was like, okay, like let's look at the credit, whatever. And the credit was awful. And I was like, this is weird. University of Maryland, she makes like $5,000-$6,000 a month, like, and nope, completely bullshit.
Wow.
All made on Canva.
Did you call her out on it, or you just?
I have no
passed on
idea.
it?
It was like leasing it. We just told the leasing it, who works for us in the office, just said, just deny him.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, so far I haven't seen any AI app that can fake a credit score or
no.
like that. So,
but it's true. Like even
definitely for design.
even on for us as property managers, just looking at people's freaking credit reports or whatever, it's like you have no idea. Like you have to physically get their social security number, put it in there, know that it's real, because they could send you anything could be faked now, and you wouldn't have any idea.
Yeah, and there's so many websites out there that people can go to buy fake pay stubs, and I'm assuming fake bank statements as well.
Yeah, I imagine that people are making all sorts of fake stuff online for, in India, and they're sending it.
No doubt.
Like it's got to be.
You made me think of another really big downside. I think we're going to see a lot more identity theft.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the phishing scams have been multiplied 100 times over since AI has been popular. I can tell.
Yeah.
Just in my emails and everything, I'm getting a lot more spam text and stuff like that. I guarantee that's all AI generated.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit scary.
Yeah, I know there's going to be some downfalls to it and the whole system, not just like the ChatGPT thing, but all of it, just like the image creation, the image editing. There's so many industries that I can think of that are going to be affected by it. Video editing, the software is not there yet. Like it's still wonky. Like I tried to mess with it for the Instagram reels and stuff, and I just got kind of frustrated. So I kind of stopped doing it because you still have to go in and edit it and stuff like that. But the scary part that it's learning, so it's getting better, and without us even knowing or trying, like the software itself it's learning. It's like machine learning. So it is, I think, in a couple years going to be something that's going to be taking over a lot of industries.
Yeah, no doubt.
So Brad, as a wholesaler, where do you see the real estate market now versus where it was 2 years ago?
Well, I can tell you in the wholesaling business, it's a heck of a lot more saturated. And again, it's a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. Everybody knows about it and everybody has access to everything now. When I started 6 years ago, there was far fewer wholesalers, and especially in the Baltimore area. I think, there's good years and bad years. I think this year for me has not been one of my greatest years. It's been okay. But I think a lot of that has to do with interest rates and, again, saturation. I'm getting outbid on a lot of deals. But, Nick, you and I were talking earlier, like I stick to my numbers. I mean, I'm not budging. And I think there's a lot of bad deals being done by wholesalers. I don't know how they're getting them sold, but I'm losing those deals. And sometimes they're coming back to me, sometimes they're not. But I think there's a lot more competition. I do think that, and I've had this discussion with some other investors, I think that in the next 6 to 8 months, the tables are going to turn a little bit. I think we're going to come back to like a buyer's market. I think a lot of the sellers who were sticking to their guns with me this year are going to have a change of heart, and I'm going to ramp up accordingly. I think even in lean times, you got to ramp up. I think that's the only way to survive. But it's definitely become a very saturated market for wholesaling, especially, and that's why I'm trying to do some of these things I was talking about earlier, like lending, the gap lending, and some other things. Writing the book. I've got some other ideas for books. Just because I'm a writer by trade, and I might get back into some consulting myself for marketing and PR on top of that.
Yeah, I do think with wholesaling too, and just like getting outbid, I think a lot of people, like I was mentioning before, because I do a lot of estimates for my construction company, and I'm noticing people are buying deals that wholesalers say are X amount in rehab. And this has always been the case, but I feel like it's gotten really bad recently for some
You're not
reason.
talking about 252 South Eden, I know.
No, but as a contractor, people call me and they're like, "Yeah, I think it's going to be a $45,000 rehab," and I'm like, "Well, that'll get you plumbing, electric, and HVAC, and now we got to finish the rest of it. It's going to be 85,000," and they had no idea that they thought it was going to be half of what it is, or that's what the wholesaler told them it was going to be, and these people are getting stuck with bad deals, and I think a lot of people are losing money right now, especially at the refi table. People, new investors especially, they are buying these deals, they're dumping more money than they should have. Then they get to the refi table, and even their DSCR loan, the ratio is not right, so they're only getting 60%, 55. One of my investors he got stuck. He was 55% that he got.
Wow.
So like, how can you're going to get stuck with a lot of money in these deals if you're only pulling 55% LTV?
Yeah.
Is that what the bank was giving him, or that's what
Based on where the rate was and the rent was, the ratio.
Oh,
like
because the rent was too low.
Because the appraisal was fine, but the rent ratio was too low with the rate.
Yeah.
So
to get 75%, he would essentially not cash flow, and
he would be negative. Yeah. Yep.
So what do they need? A mentor, right?
They need a mentor. They need something. But I mean, I think also you need to do some more due diligence, and if you have a place under contract, and it's tough too. I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth. It's like, how can I be a strong buyer if I'm also like with a wholesaler? Hey, I need a 10-day inspection clause or whatever. Like, that's a tough thing to negotiate, because I know the way I've bought the last few deals that make sense is I said, hey, I'll close next week. Like, I don't need any inspections, no nothing. That's how you got to get it done. So new investors and I know how much it costs to do this stuff, but new investors, you need to get the numbers right, and it's really unfortunately important. It's tough because the time frame you have is very, very short.
In the beginning, I had a very tough time estimating repairs, but now I've learned that I'm usually pretty close. And if I'm in doubt, I'll call someone I know who's like Jim Gensinger or somebody who knows their stuff, and get a real estimate. I'm not always right, like we were talking about that Eden property earlier. The guy who I ended up selling it to found termite damage after he got in there, which is something nobody found, and that just sucks.
Right.
But even you looked at it, and you and I didn't really agree on the number, but I thought it was pretty close. But so did most of the buyers that. But obviously you're a little more thorough. So I try my best because I'm not a contractor, but I've gotten better at doing it. And when I'm in doubt and I can't get a hold of someone, I probably add another 10-20% into the estimate, just to cover myself.
It's really on the buyer, though.
True.
It's on the buyer.
Is true.
Like, I get it. Like, the wholesaler shouldn't be just straight up lying. They should have some sort of educated guess. But, if you're going to buy an asset, 6-figure asset, you really need to do the due diligence in order, especially if you're new, right? Like, you can't put it all on the wholesalers. Like, they may do all the work themselves with their own hands. And yes, it might have costed them $45,000. They were professional electricians. They were HVAC guys, plumbers, the whole nine. Maybe it did cost somebody that much. But, if you're going to hire a contractor who's going to do it, it's never going to cost that much.
Yeah. And then especially when you're starting out, you probably don't know all those trades and how to build a house. So you're going to hire it out, and you're not going to get the cheapest rate because
you're just subbing everything to different people. Exactly. And you're paying retail prices for everything.
Yeah. Well, and I've learned that, the only deals I ever have to blast out email are the ones that are a little bit tighter.
Right.
Not 80 to 90% of my deals never make it to email because I already have someone lined up and they take it, because there's a couple things that I tried to base my business on only because my parents have had businesses in this area forever. And, we have a very unique last name, and I'm not about to ruin that reputation. I take integrity very seriously. I take transparency very seriously, and I take credibility very seriously. And if I don't have those three things, I'm not doing the deal.
Yeah, that's good. So what are some of this year's goals? Now, you wrote the book, you're doing some wholesaling. Do you have any like short-term goals this year that you're trying to implement now and get,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wanna get the wholesaling business up to another level. Last year was a pretty good year. If I can get it back to last year's level, at least.
So how many houses did you sell last year?
I did like 33 deals last year, which for me was a lot because I also spend a couple days a week at the family's law firm. So, for me, it's like a 3-4 day week doing wholesaling. And as a solo guy, that's not a bad number of deals. I would love to be able to double that. But again, it comes to scaling, and that's one thing I'm not good at. I'd like to do some more of that lending that I was talking about earlier, only because I'm getting a little bit older. I'll be 53 in a couple weeks, and I'm only 6 years away from being able to touch that retirement money. So may as well start building it. I think everybody should think about building that, even if you're younger guys. I mean, I know you guys are like in your 30s probably.
Yeah.
But I think that's important. And, I'd like to do a couple flips. I did one last year and I enjoyed it. I just haven't found the right property to do it. And then the other big one for me is I am looking now at a lot of like sub 2 and creative finance deals. I have a partner who really wants to do a lot of them. He's very good at it. And he and I are putting together a plan to do some more deals together. He's also a realtor, so I don't. It's nice for me. I have access to the MLS without paying for it because I have enough. I know enough realtors, and you guys are probably the same way. You know enough realtors that you
we're both realtors.
Yeah, and you already or you have your license. You don't have to deal with it. And I think that's another place where wholesalers fall flat is they just don't have access to those resources. And again, that's networking, getting your name out there, and meeting the right people. But I think I'd like to do a lot more sub 2 deals actually than cash deals because I want them to be cash flowing down the road. As opposed to getting rentals.
Best time to do it now with the high interest rates.
Exactly. And that's why I'm staying away from rentals because I'm just not seeing the value unless I get a deal that's an absolute home run. I mean, I'm sticking away from rentals now. I mean, you guys are fortunate. You already have a nice portfolio of rentals. I don't have that luxury right now, and this is the wrong time to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a tough time to start and scale a portfolio, but I don't think it's time to like give up either. Like I definitely think that there are deals that like we're under contract on 2 and we just closed on 2, and the 2 that we just closed on, they came up and we closed within 2 weeks on both of them, and they just like both made sense. Like one, we own another house on the block and just bought and started construction on another house. And the realtor over there just called us and was like, hey, like we're about to list this. I noticed you just closed on that one. What can you do? And we made an offer and we came to terms, and I got it for $115. As it sits right now, it's probably worth like $170.
Nice.
And it's going to cost me like $25,000 to fix it, and it'll be worth $220, $230.
That's a good deal.
And I'm going to refinance it and keep it, and I'll barely have any money in the deal. And my cash flow probably won't be that great on it for the first couple of years, but I'm sitting with enough equity that at the refi the next time, it's going to be a cash cow.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say, anyone out there listening who wants to get in real estate now, if the deal makes sense, if the cash flow is there, jump in and do it.
Do it.
I still find deals where the deals make sense. Obviously, you as a wholesaler, you're probably able to find deals obviously at a lower rate if you're going to sell them to another investor for a higher price. Those deals may make sense. Just run the numbers at 8.5%, for example, just to be on the safe side of things.
Sure.
Yeah, and other ways too. I don't know if we've talked about this house that I just transitioned this year, but I just did a rooming house for college kids, where I rented this house to a fraternity the year prior, and the rent was $4,200. My mortgage was $2,000 or $2,200. This year, I couldn't get it rented for the whole property again, so I was like, oh shit, let me try bedrooms. Now I have it split up with the 6 bedrooms that are there, and my rent is $5,700.
Wow.
And my mortgage is still $2,200 or
Wow.
whatever. So
that's a home run.
that to me, like we have money in that deal, so that wasn't a perfect burr. Like we ended up, there was a lot of money left in that deal. I think almost 6 figures was like
Net's
left
still
over.
got to be good though.
But it's still like the net's good. But what I'm saying is like we took a property that we thought we were going to kind of eat shit on now because we couldn't get it rented in time to a full group, and we actually are now making more money than we ever did before.
Yeah.
And all it took was a lot more management and work on my end to go show it to all these different people. It's like now it was 6 listings instead of 1 listing.
Right.
You know, it's 6 different people that you need to rent to.
Is
So
this
a little more
still-
work.
Is it still all college kids there?
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Every one of them goes to Towson, I think, except one kid goes to Loyola or some other school.
So before, when you were renting for 4,200, you would just give one lease to one person, and then they would be responsible for filling the rooms up.
Well, no. So it was like everybody was on the lease and their parents. So there was actually like 12 people on this lease before.
Good insurance policy, right?
Yeah,
there,
exactly. But the new one, and most of the new ones have a cosigner as well. The new one is an individual lease per bedroom. So it would be like, it's like 426 Evesham room 1, 426 Evesham room 2. Before it was just like the whole property and everybody was on the same lease. Now I have 6 individual leases.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it's just, you know, like creative ways to make it work. Somebody just called me today on one of our signs about renting a spot, and they're doing, I think we talked about this last week with, or a couple weeks ago with Michael Schiff, is he's doing like rehab houses, and the insurance companies pay him to put people in these bedrooms, and they have like a manager that comes, and a social worker or whatever that comes and talks to the people, and they're all like ex-addicts or people getting on their feet or whatever, and they're getting paid like $800-900 per bedroom, where, you know, this one's on Allendale that they want from me, which is, you know, $1,800 is 4 beds.
How difficult is the permitting process for a rooming house?
I mean, it's basically the same. It's basically the same thing. Like you just, that's an option that you pick when you put your, you know, put in for your license.
So I have 2 properties that I rent out to an LLC who runs a business like that. They had to come in and just change some things. Like all the doors have to be solid interior doors. They have to put exit signs up. And I think that was it as far as what they told me, as far as like alterations.
This was city.
Yeah, Baltimore City. Yep.
Because yours was county, I'd say, I guess.
No, mine's city line. It's right on Northern Parkway and York Road.
That's near my old hood. I grew up in Mount Washington.
Yeah, this is literally the corner of Evesham. It's Evesham. It's a corner of Northern Parkway and York Road. It's right there. But it's you know, just another way. Don't want to get on like too many tangents about it, but just another way that you could make things make sense. You know, you look at some short-term rentals and create cash flow that way. There's medium-term rentals. You know, we're doing traveling nurses and stuff like that. They pay a lot more than the typical person. And if you have multifamilies, like at the one that we have, the short-term or medium-term that we have for the nurses, this apartment is above our office. So like normally you'd have to pay for your Wi-Fi. Well, we already have Wi-Fi there. And normally you'd have to pay for the water. Well, we're using the water downstairs. They're using minimal water upstairs. So you have multifamilies, and you can start creating a lot more cash flow with medium term, short terms. There's so many creative ways that I feel like I don't want, you know, people are getting discouraged now, I think, not getting into real estate because the rates are so high and it's tougher to find a deal, and the wholesalers are, you know, saturated or whatever, fighting over different deals. And I do think that the right deal is out there for everybody. You just got to do the work to get it.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me personally, because most of my marketing is inbound, a lot of it comes through my website, and I'm very hands-on. The second something comes through my website, I make that call before they go on to the next person. That's another really important thing. You got to be on that immediately, or they will go down the line. Like a good example, I was over at the hockey rink on Saturday, and I was actually watching a game. Luckily, I wasn't playing, and I saw it on my phone, and I called immediately, and I went and looked at it today. And right now, I'm the only person that's looked at it, but that's because I called her immediately. It's her grandmother's condo, and she was calling me from San Francisco, and she got me in there today, and nobody else has seen it, so I'll be the first one able to make an offer. But that's because I jumped on it. If I had waited till today to call, at least 5 other investors would have probably seen it by now.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important in any business, but specifically wholesaling. When a lead comes in, you want to make sure that you make that call right away to be the first one in there.
I mean, wholesaling, anything, construction.
Mhm.
These people are on Angie's List or whatever
Sure,
else. They're
sure.
looking at all different people. Realtors, same thing. Anybody, like the speed, the assertiveness, everything that matters. You got to separate yourself. Back in 2016, 2017, it was easy street. There was
no doubt.
there was properties everywhere. You can almost buy anything, and it made sense. Now it's not the same. So
Much
you got to
tougher.
separate yourself from the competition.
And you got to follow up. I'll tell you. I mean, anyone in marketing will tell you that it takes 6 to 7 touches of some kind of marketing before someone's going to respond to you.
Right.
So when you send out direct mail, when you call and you're not getting responses, you just got to keep at it.
Yep. I agree. Nick, you got anything else for Brad today?
So what's the name of your website again?
So my website is webuymdhomes.com.
And if you were to sell it, how much would you sell it for?
We were talking about this earlier. I don't know. I never thought about it. I mean, at this point, it would have to be enough for me to retire because I don't really have anything else going on. So
Fair enough.
Too much, basically.
I would want to mention one other thing too. I was talking about my book. I did start Facebook group and a YouTube channel also that are ChatGPT for real estate investors, and anybody can join those for free, follow for free, or join for free. And I put out a lot of content on the Facebook group, especially.
What's the name of it?
It's just ChatGPT for real estate investors, just like the book.
Okay. And that's a YouTube channel too?
I did it for YouTube. That one I just started, so that one but I'm putting some of those videos out there now. And, I try at least once a week to do a 3 to 4 minute video using a couple prompts just to show how it works. And I try to put out as much content as possible, and I encourage others to put out content. I don't get as much participation as I want, but it's fairly new. So
yeah, you just got to keep.
Yeah, anybody on social media can join
it
it for free. And then Instagram is just my name. It's the Brad Dwin.
The Brad Dwin.
That's
and
it.
ChatGPT for real estate investors.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys letting me come down here today. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also for everybody that is listening, we are having another event on October 26th at 5 p.m., 5 to 9 at the Point in Towson. So if you are free on October 26th, you need to come to the Point. It's going to be a free event. We're going to have sponsors. We're going to have free food, free drinks for some people. It'll be partially catered. But yeah, bring your friends. It'll be a good time. So Brad, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thank
Awesome,
you.
man.
Until next time, guys.